It has been a while since we last visited post-apocalyptic America. You know, about 4 months. But Fallout 4 is finally among us, and it's already made a significant splash within the gaming community. From the past month, the game has infiltrated the Reddit front page on a daily basis, and has easily become the biggest release of 2015. I have personally spent dozens of hours wandering the streets of destroyed Boston, and I have enjoyed every second I spent with it. However, beneath the sheer hours of thrilling joy you'll put into this lies a price of admission. A cost that requires you to look past a certain amount of attributes that may not live up to what standards in the video game industry should be, but one that's still absolutely worth playing through nevertheless. Fallout 4 may have been the least surprising announcement for a AAA title I've ever seen. As far back as 2013, only 2 years after the release of Skyrim, a flood of information leaked about the game. This news quickly spread over almost every gaming media outlet there was, with countless rumors regarding when Bethesda would finally reveal this game. All of the information was almost undoubtedly true too, considering part of that leak was that it took place in Massachusetts, and members of Bethesda were spotted taking photographs around MIT. It took a few months, but Todd Howard finally commented on the matter, but quickly said that it was going to be a while before they announced their next game. Fast forward to the summer of 2014, and now a Reddit post surfaces out of nowhere from a woman who claims she was a former employee of the company. However, this post was probably made up, considering some of her information isn't represented in the final product, like versions for the previous console generation on Xbox 360 and PS3. What the post did do, though, was to get people talking about the possibility of Fallout 4 yet again. Let's go to 2015 now. Bethesda announces that they're going to be hosting their very own E3 press conference. But, just a few weeks before the actual trade show took place, the game would formally be announced in the form of an online countdown. At E3 itself, Fallout 4 was officially stated to be released of November of that year. It's the year 2287, and once again, war. War hasn't changed. This time, we're not in DC or the outskirts surrounding Las Vegas, but the territory within New England known as the Commonwealth. Keeping up with the long tradition of the Fallout franchise, its setting is a post-apocalyptic retro future one. World War propaganda still persists in this unaltered society that has never moved past those very tropes, and once again, everybody is at each other's throats just to survive. The Commonwealth is perhaps the most expansive open world the Fallout universe has seen yet, with adequate detail placed in the environmental attributes like the structure of Diamond City. However, while the open world may be large and expansive, this wasteland seems even more dead and less extensive in terms of personality. And let me tell you what I mean. In past Fallout games, there was always an overarching juxtaposition between the satiric and grim world building. One play session you may have experienced the humorous goat exam, when another you may have come across a dead man's final writings. I'm not saying Fallout 4 is completely devoid of those instances, but I will say that seeing less of that kind of stuff wasted more potential of this game, possibly further instantiating the world beyond their fictional wasteland. Now, I don't know about you, but I've noticed that the past Fallout games' individual plots can be diminished into something along the lines of go find. Fallout 1, go find the water chip. Fallout 2, go find the Gek. Fallout 3, go find your father. Fallout New Vegas, go find the people who tried to kill you. And finally, Fallout 4, go find your son. Now, the game begins before the bombs dropped, just like the E3 demo. In fact, the E3 presentation showed what was practically the entire sequence. It's very short, very minimal, and very concise. Fallout 3's opening section was around 45 minutes, give or take, which you could argue was a tad too long, but was also so effective because it really made you believe that your character grew up in that vault. Fallout 4 doesn't really have that advantage over its predecessor, but that's not to say it's a bad setup. Quite the contrary, actually. But it's simply a bummer that Bethesda chose to present that part. Ultimately, the introduction loses the impact akin to what we got in Fallout 3, but it's still a cool way to start the game, nevertheless. From there, the game spirals into a series of twists and turns that I can definitely get behind. The series' roots in science fiction have never been more apparent, and I can say without a doubt that this is the best narrative to ever grace a Fallout title. That said, it is extremely short. Just like all the other ones, this has become par for the course for various games developed by Bethesda, mostly because of its reliance on the players outgoing for side quests, and Fallout 4 is no different here. It's around the same length as 3 or New Vegas. Short, but sweet. Bethesda has once again crafted the premier game to just wander. From spontaneous ghoul attacks to interactions with commonplace NPCs, you never know what's going to occur next. Perhaps that's part of the charm that Fallout 4 is going for it over anything else, because you have certainly seen this kind of game before. Now, I was one of the 8 people that did not play Skyrim back in 2011, but I've seen enough to know that game follows that same template also seen in Fallout 3 and Oblivion. It's a great outline for the large worlds they present, but we've seen it all before. Even the mostly harmless amounts of glitches that can be pervasively found yet again, they admittedly add a bit of character in the process. But they're becoming less okay as time goes on. I'm not saying there's no enjoyment to be found in this template anymore. I mean, I can't think of a game that has a more satisfying sense of exploration, but there's not much here that hasn't been altered enough to differentiate itself, in my opinion. Now, I do not want to be a complete bearer of negativity here, because all of the outline problems aside, Fallout 4 is still absolutely awesome. Just like 3 in New Vegas, the game takes principle as an RPG over being a first-person shooter. However, this iteration seems to be leaning more in the FPS category, as not only can you aim down the sights, a feature from New Vegas, but the stable VAT system now functions simultaneously with enemy movement. Not bad changes at all, as mixing up the execution of VATs was a good idea to keep some of these mechanics fresh. That said, I used VATs significantly less than I did in 3 in New Vegas, perhaps signifying that the next Fallout may delve even farther down the FPS curve. Again, not a bad thing, just a notable difference between games. The guns and various weapons you'll find along all parts of the wasteland can be exciting, and you'll always yearn to try them out for yourself next in battle. Combat in general is slightly more fast-paced than 3 in New Vegas, but I think this comes at a disadvantage at times for the game, at least for my playstyle. For instance, I save a ton in these kind of RPGs, in the middle of bosses, speech encounters, you name it. However, specific with this game, and I'm fairly sure this wasn't an issue in 3 in New Vegas, the end of a load hides part of the game in action. And what I mean is that if you save within a combat encounter, the enemy will get a chance to get a free hit or two on you because you can't move for a second or two because that load screen is blocking it. This didn't prove to be a problem enough time for me to mark it against the game, but it was frustrating the few times I did have to deal with it. A new game marks some new revamped systems as well. For instance, there's now a further implemented companion system, as you can now develop certain relationships with your partner to grant special bonuses. This feature is nothing short of great, and they're essentially free extra damage. But warn you, keep track of where you send them if you decide to dismiss them for whatever reason. The game does not leave a marker or anything signifying where an unused companion is located, so if you lose track of one, you bet you're going to have to trek across the entire Commonwealth to find them again. Now, also new to Fallout 4 is its leveling system. You're back to choosing a perk at every level up, but gone are the individual spec raises. Now you can add an efficiency up to your main stats in place of a perk. I'm fine with this system. It's somewhat a breath of fresh air for the series, but it's not necessarily better than the other system, and if anything, it's another step away from its role-playing roots. However, the most apparent lacking system in Fallout 4 is the mystery of why there's no karma. Karma was a central part in developing yourself in the past games, whether your endings or whatever you're talking about. Specifically in New Vegas with its factions. Actions are still marked as red to signify something evil, but they only affect your companion's opinion of you. So, at least as far as I know, evil actions have very little consequence, which just seems a strange missed opportunity to me, and somewhat of an oversight, considering it's been in the series in the past. Also, I have to ask, what happened to the dialogue options here? It's their first attempt at adding a fully voiced character, so some changes had to inevitably be made. But I'll admit, the interface was a bit clunky in 3 in New Vegas, but the solution to that was not throwing this comically awkward, sarcastic section.
Nikki's missing. What has he gotten himself into this time?
Picture on milk carton time?
If only it was that simple.
The most advertised additional mechanism within Fallout 4, or at least that one that they showed at E3, is the city building system. It's exactly as it sounds. A mechanic where you construct your own settlement within the first-person Fallout perspective. Is this system good? Yes, it's fun and perfectly manageable, and I can see why people have gotten so invested with it. However, there's absolutely no motive to do this. With the exception of the small experience points you get for building your troubles, it's nothing to complain about. But it would have been nice if there was an added benefit to keep you coming back. Because as of right now, it's just nothing. It's just for personal fulfillment. So if that's for you, then by all means, this is right up your alley. Now, one last aspect of Fallout 4 that I found particularly engaging and wanted to make note of here was the use of its factions, something that was introduced in Obsidian's Fallout New Vegas. However, the problem with New Vegas' implementation was that the character motivation was very one-dimensional. The Legion was very much the come here to slaughter people group. So unless you were purposely playing an evil class, chances are you knew you weren't going to side with them. In Fallout 4, it was truly difficult to decide who to side with by the end of the game. All of them have their good and bad, but those qualities are never severely outmatched. Each faction presented a valid claim to side with one over the other, and I think this speaks to design strength of the game. Now, no matter how much you love this game, admit it, because there's no other way around it. Bethesda games have always been a technical mess. Since as far back as Daggerfall, this has been the case. Fallout 4 is no exception, and while the glitches have always been a part of the developer's charm in a way, a game crashing can never be justified. That is why I can't stress enough why you should definitely buy this game on PC over any console given you have the choice. On PC, the game crashed on me only twice. But since I saved often, this was more of an annoyance rather than an ongoing problem. The only other notable glitch that I came upon was that my Pip-Boy would sometimes disappear randomly, and that the only way to solve it was to reload a save. Now, I've heard horror stories on consoles, particularly on Xbox One, so definitely go for the PC version here. Now, as far as the graphical content is, the environmental foliage and general landscape is actually fairly impressive, and generally very visual appealing. The character models and animations, on the other hand, leave a lot to be desired, and that's understating. It's really, the contrast here is really off the walls. Like, I can't believe these animations look that bad. It's outdated, and there's no other way to get around it. But the graphics personally don't matter to me. So take that opinion of mine as you want. This doesn't really matter to me, but if it does to you, oh, this is not good. Video game standards have changed a lot since 2008, and Fallout 4 almost seems like something of a relic right out of that period. A lack of significant evolution may be its largest downfall, but that still doesn't stop Fallout 4 from objectively being one of the best titles of the year. There are tons of issues with it, yeah. I mean, perhaps more than a AAA title game in 2015 should have in the first place. But it's still well worth your time. Is Fallout 4 better than its predecessors? Not objectively, because I think I actually enjoyed 3 in New Vegas more. But if you're looking to get it in the series at this point, look no further than 4. The Bethesda template is still by all means fun, but it's losing its luster with each Fallout and Elder Scrolls iteration. Here's hoping they shake it up next time around, but I guess I'm still good with taking out ghouls in the meantime. Oh, and hearing Wadsworth say my name.
Mr. Jeremy, your family isn't here either. They're really gone, aren't they?